Welcome. My name is Daniel Biss. I have the honor of serving as mayor of Evanston. I'm really, really looking forward to the conversation that we're about to have this afternoon. I'm joined by Jennifer Moriarty. And as many of you probably know, there was an outrageous incident that happened in Evanston on Friday on Halloween. Uh, CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, were all over town and doing awful immigration actions, abducting landscapers, just doing the thing that they've been doing around the Chicago area for months now. And then later in the afternoon, a totally crazy situation happened where, after a car accident, these federal agents basically started attacking people who were more or less just involved in articulating their dissent. There's been viral videos that folks have probably seen of, one person was pinned on the ground and just punched in the head again and again. Uh, and after all of that, the federal agents stuffed the stuffed 3 people in their vehicle, um, and then, by the way, also stuffed themselves in the vehicle. It was sort of overfull, and drove off. When I arrived, they were in the process of jamming, some civilians in the vehicle, filling the vehicle, and there was a chaotic scene, and eventually they drove away. I was subsequently introduced to Jennifer, who was one of the people who they took away, and so has this visibility into what these guys do and how they operate. And I just think for those of us who have been living in terror for weeks, who've been watching these mysterious armed, masked men with unmarked cars and no ID, just sort of like monstrous robots or something, come after us in our neighborhoods, to actually understand what it's like inside the car and what they do is just, like, super important and super meaningful and just incredibly interesting. And so I'm beyond appreciative of you for being willing to join us and have this conversation and share your story. So before we get started, if you want to just sort of introduce yourself and say who you are, what
Yep,
as much as what you care to say.
sure. My name is Jennifer. I'm a member of this community. This incident happened right at the corner of my street. I've been a member of the community for quite some time, and I love Evanston. And I used to love this country when it used to be a country, but now it's turned into absolute chaos. Um, Friday, right around noon hour, there were uh, there were lots of whistles and horns going off because from my understanding, is these agents were essentially trolling Oakton between the 3 schools that are between Ridge and Dodge. And at one point, I was traveling westbound on Oakton, and a SUV made an erratic right turn to go north on Asbury and immediately slammed on their brakes to create an accident with a young lady. Every There were people in other cars that were honking their horns. There were people riding bikes. They were out on the street blowing their whistles. So everyone jumped out of their cars. As I approached with my cell phone in hand to start recording, I saw the young lady face down on the ground with agents on her. And as soon as I walked up, an agent grabbed me by my neck and threw me back and threw me to the ground and was on top of me. Uh, and then a young man came
And I
to,
don't know, do you mind if I just, like, interrupt with questions as they come up?
sure.
So, just can you be as like, what did you do to why did they do that? Why?
I, because I was part of the people doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, protesting, alerting the community, videotaping their actions and what they're doing. I didn't even get an opportunity to hit record when he grabbed me by the neck and threw me down.
So you were
Um,
grab tacked for the crime of being a person with a different opinion than them.
Absolutely. Yes, being a member of a community who was on alert.
Yeah, sorry,
And
go.
they actually put the young lady in the car first. She was able to slide across the back seat and open the door from the other side, and was able to get out with the help of another wonderful community member. And the agent, who I refer to as the Ginger, who was the most violent of them all, who repeatedly pulled his gun out and pointed in the face of community members attempted to mace several people. He ran around and tackled her again. They put me in. They put her back in on the passenger side. And all during that time, they were still beating on this young man outside the window of the car.
Before we get to him, so that there's you who've been like attacked and thrown around, and there's this young woman who got put in the car on one side, got out on the other side, and then got again tackled and put back in the car. She was the one driving the red car
She
that
was the,
uh, got it. So
yeah,
she's the one in the accident that the agents forced to happen. So
yeah,
they got her into an accident and then grabbed her and jammed her in their car.
correct.
Go ahead. I'm
And
sorry.
and then eventually, the young man, they got into the car. The crowd was incredible. The crowd was, very supportive, gathering information, videotaping, blowing their whistles, ensuring that we weren't, they couldn't leave. Um, at one point, they were attempting to roll up the windows of the vehicle, but I kept my finger on the window down button and back because the ginger couldn't understand that he didn't have window locks on. So I was able to keep my finger down and yell out where we were heading. Um, they eventually got the other agent. One of them was on the phone trying to coordinate a location to go meet people. So they were trying to get directions to go to different locations to meet. I'm assuming other agents. Um,
So you're
the
in the car and they're on the phone, seems like with colleagues talking about locations. So you hear where they're going, and then
Yes,
you're able to yell out the window what the plan is.
yes, and they for the third agent got in the back seat with us, so we were all crammed in the back. I was the only one that was handcuffed in the front. At one point, I was able to record while we were in the car. They took my phone away from me, but they put it up in the front near the ginger in the driver's side. And while they were not paying attention and we were driving, I was able to retrieve my phone and I was able to make a phone call to my friend and just let it play. So she has an audio recording of what was occurring in the car. They drove us all around Evanston and then they went into Rogers Park. We were driving down alleys in Rogers Park. Um, they again rolled the windows down on the vehicle, so we were able to yell out the window to the people in Rogers Park that they were there. And that community organized lickety split and immediately began blowing whistles and yelling. We then ended up on Clark Street and turned onto Howard. And as soon as the ginger did that, he sped up and slammed on his brakes and attempted to cause another accident with all of us in the car. He jumped out of his car and attempted to mace that driver.
Wait, so
He
he
got that.
successfully caused an accident.
He tried to cause a second accident with all of us in the car. And then
Was there another accident then?
no, the other driver didn't hit. They were able to stop, but he jumped out and ran back to try and mace them. And he did that on another occasion as well. And then finally, when he did it a third time, one of the other agents in the car told him not to get out of the car anymore. And then from Rogers Park, we went back into Evanston. We eventually met the Evanston police along McCormick at Sculpture Park, in which the ginger, in order to make an accident report for the motor vehicle accident, which seemed rather odd to me. But the police officer from Evanston that came was able to obtain the driver's license of the Border Patrol agent Ginger who was driving the vehicle. So his information is known. After that interaction at that location, they continued to drive us around Evanston, and we ended up on the north end of Evanston, close to around Lincoln on the north end. And eventually, we were met by another vehicle, another Border Patrol vehicle, in which they transferred myself into that vehicle because there were too many people. So I was then moved into a vehicle by myself. We were all taken to the FBI facility down on Roosevelt and kept there for a while and then released. We were never arrested. We were never charged. There's no paperwork involved in any of this. Um, it, it was surreal and absolute. And the young man who was in the car, who was injured, repeatedly requested medical attention, and they refused to provide any type of medical attention to him. In fact, the ginger said he was a licensed paramedic, but refused to provide any sort of attention to him. And I think that people have probably seen the video. The side of his head was, the last time that I saw that young man, the side of his head around his eye was black.
So, so you tell me about what it's like in the car. Are the agents speaking with each other? Are they speaking with you? Are you guys talking? Like, what's going on in there?
It was very chaotic. There does not seem to be any sort of chain of command whatsoever. Um, it was very chaotic. There were times when, and this sounds a little bizarre, but at one point the young man he was very upset, and appeared to be about to get sick. And at that point, I pushed his head towards the agent so that I said, "If you're going to throw up, please do it on this agent or the driver, the ginger." I said, "Do not do it on me. They created this shit mess. They can clean it all up." And at that point, the ginger turned around. And that was probably the second time he attempted to mace me in the face.
Well, he tried to mace you in the car.
3 times he pulled his mace out and pointed it in my face to mace me in the car.
Now, I'm not a mace expert, but seems like the wrong. That seems like a strange move. How about that?
Well, my response to him is that we're all in this together, so whatever, if that's what you're going to do. The level of incompetence is frightening. And what they are absolutely afraid of communities that are organized. Every time the horn started blowing or whistles started blowing and people recognized them, you could see the level of anxiety in these and rage kind of take over them. And they just didn't understand that our community is not going to put up with it. Neither is Chicago. Everybody here is organized. And that is what they were afraid of. They were afraid of a community armed with whistles and cell phones. And they were pointing guns and mace at these people. There was not a single individual in the community that was violent at all. It was all by these agents.
So I have so many things to say. But are the agents themselves talking in the car? Like, what did you hear them say?
Yeah, there were. They made a lot in my mind. They made a lot of mistakes. That at one point, an agent was on the phone and actually provided his phone number to somebody on the phone, which I was able to just remember. And so after a few minutes, I repeated it back to him, and he was a big gobsmacked and I'm like, I'm sitting right behind you. It's laughable, but at the same time, it's very frightening because they have no idea what they're doing, and the level of incompetence and basic policing skills that I do not believe that these men had at all. It,
So your
it's hard,
sense
yeah.
is that they're just not trained at all. They're just kind of cowboys who got hired. They heard about a $50,000 signing bonus last week, and today they have a uniform.
Well, my understanding is that these were border patrol agents, and they were definitely from another state, because when I was able to see part of his driver's license, but I couldn't see what state it was, but it was not an Illinois driver's license. So they are definitely from out of state.
Mhm.
And all of the agents that I encountered were wearing uniforms that said Border Patrol. They had no other identifying marks on them. And when we got to the FBI facility, they all took their masks off. Some didn't have their masks on at all. Like the ginger kept his face exposed the entire time. And the others took their masks off when we got to the FBI facility.
Got it. And just not to harp on this, but just because, I feel like for these last several months, I've seen a lot of these guys a lot, and they just almost never speak. Like, what were they saying in the car? How do they speak to you?
There was a lot of. I was very angry, so I let them know how incompetent they were probably the entire time. Um, and they were, a lot of screaming and yelling. It was chaotic. It was a lot of screaming and yelling.
Like they're screaming and yelling.
All of us, not all of us. Myself, the agent, the young lady was very quiet, and the young man was very stressed.
Yeah.
He
Well,
was
he was in
very stressed.
serious physical distress.
He was physically hurt, and he was uh, he he just kept saying, "I just wanted to make sure nobody was hurt." So he was just coming up to make sure that nobody was hurt because of a car accident, and he sees people on the ground.
Oh my God.
It was very distressing to see his condition. I mean, I was, you know, keeping the focus away from him as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about, having the presence of mind to place that call. You talked about having the ability to scream out the window in Rogers Park. Um, I don't know if there's an answer to this question that you can give, but what gave you the courage to do that?
Because
Or
I
maybe let me
wasn't
ask a different version of the question. How scary was it to be in that car?
I wasn't afraid. I was very angry, and I'm not afraid because you know I'm a woman, I'm a citizen, and I'm white. So I knew. I always knew that I would be home. And so I was not afraid of that. I didn't have that fear. The anger was was my controlling emotion throughout the entire experience.
Yeah. So what happened when you got to the FBI?
So when I got there, they put me in a room with where they handcuffed you to like a bar, and at some point, two allegedly FBI agents came in, claiming that they were acting as an independent agency, and I asked, if I'm under arrest. They said no. I said, then why am I still handcuffed here? Because my rights are being violated exponentially. And they said that Border Patrol is detaining you. And I said, for what? And they had no response.
And maybe this is an unfair question. Tell me if it is, but that doesn't sound legal in this country, right?
As far as I know, it is not legal. We were assaulted by federal agents, alleged federal agents, and we were abducted. There was no arrest. Uh, There was no reason to, take us. We were completely abducted. We were, put in jeopardy driving all around, and then brought downtown and left free to go. Just pushed out. Literally, they opened the gate and they walked you to the gate and they said, "You're free to go."
So you were they were not they did not enumerate a cause for
No,
this detention, let's call it generously. They didn't enumerate your rights.
no,
They claim not to have arrested you, and yet they took away your liberty and handcuffed you, and without your consent, drove you around town and deposited you 15 miles from where they took you. I mean, this is not a justice system. This is a lawless reign of terror.
they don't seem to have any sort of control or any sort of boundary. And it appeared just by the way they behaved that there was absolute. They weren't afraid of whatever they were doing, that they were going to suffer any consequences. In my mind, I
Yeah.
did remind them at some point during the ordeal that history tells you that the leaders usually don't go to prison, but everybody else underneath them does. So I told them they should probably get their affairs in order.
My hero. How did they respond to that?
I don't think that they're equipped to handle someone with a sharp tongue. And one other thing that I do want to say is that allegedly they had body cam on the entire time. When we arrived at the FBI facility, as soon as we pulled in, one of the guys said, "You can turn your body cams off now." I did speak to one of the other people that had been abducted with me, who was in the other car, and they confirmed that that was also said in their car when they arrived at the FBI facility.
Hmm.
So supposedly there is body cam from the incident all the way through to the arrival at the FBI.
Got it. I want to go back to you talked about both how you're in the car on Asbury in Evanston before the car moves anywhere, and you described at least one incident in Rogers Park where you yelled out the window and people mobilized fast. Just can you say how that felt? Like, what did it do for you to have that support outside the car, and what was the interaction between you guys in the car and rapid responders outside the car who were trying to help?
When we were in the alley, a woman, a Latino woman, was walking down the alley. It appeared from the grocery store. And I just screamed out and held my hands up so that she could see that my hands were in handcuffs. And she immediately just started running and screaming ice. And by the time these guys started to move their vehicle and get to the corner where they could turn, there were people already blowing whistles and there were cars already honking horns. They went down a one-way street, and I do remember this woman. There were two people in a car, and they turned the right way down the street and were able to block them in. And she jumped out of the car with her phone in front of them and just let them have it. And they eventually were able to maneuver around and then get onto Clark Street before they went back onto Howard Street. I was it was when they were driving the wrong way down those one-way streets in that condensed area of Rogers Park. My concern was that they actually were really going to hit somebody because there's a lot of people over there.
And in general, as they're driving around, how much of the time are they being followed? How much of the time are there whistles blowing or horns honking? How much of the time are they noticed?
Almost immediately, everywhere they went. At one point, when we were in North Evanston on North McCormick, getting close to Haven, and at one point it felt like we were the only car on the road. I do remember seeing a man on a bicycle, and he just appeared to be out riding his bicycle and just at a split second moment took a side glance and instantaneously pulled a whistle out and started blowing. And the agents got visibly upset and started swearing because they got clocked. And then they turned down a street, and there was another woman who was walking out her front door. She immediately clocked them. They turned a corner. It was one of those tight streets where parking is allowed on both sides. A woman was coming down in her SUV, and she could hear all the whistles going and starting to go, and she kind of cocked her car sideways so they couldn't even move. So everybody is engaged. Everybody is engaged. There is nobody that's not paying attention in this town.
What I find like so moving about this is like to see this. I mean, obviously, yes, through your eyes, but a little bit through their eyes, that they feel pursued, they feel hunted, they feel like they can't do their jobs because the people are rising up. Because I mean, I'll just be really direct with you, Jennifer. Like, I I feel that there's even as much activism and organizing as there is, I worry that sometimes people feel a sense of futility because you do all the right things and there are still abductions. And that's true. And we have to name that and honor that. We can't pretend that we're saving everybody because we're not. And yet to know that their operations are so sensitive to and attuned to the rapid response that they are swearing and complaining and ducking away and changing course when they hear a whistle, and to know that you're getting carted all around, Evanston and Chicago for a long time, and they're being tracked everywhere, and there's whistles everywhere, and there's people out there trying to slow them down everywhere. It's just so uplifting and encouraging to hear that, and I just hope everybody who's, like, doing the rapid response or thinking about doing the rapid response, but wondering if it really matters, just knows that. Like, don't allow the fact that there are still some abductions happening to stop you. Know that all of this is making a difference and it's saving people.
Yeah, and do you do what you're comfortable with? If you're comfortable beeping your horn from your car, that's fine. Stay in your car. If you're okay getting out of your car and blowing your whistle, great. If you're okay getting all the way up there to film them, great. Because that you do what you're comfortable with. Everybody can do something, and we shouldn't be afraid. Don't be afraid. They are more afraid of us than we are of them. And they are trying to change that. They are trying to make it so that we're the ones that are afraid. And don't be afraid. We cannot be afraid. I liken this to, I mean, if these people knew history, I mean, which I don't think any of these guys know anything. But, Paul Revere rode a horse screaming, the British are coming. Our communities are blowing whistles and beeping horns. There's nothing different about that. Absolutely nothing different, and that's what we need to keep doing.
Yeah, you said 2 things there that really, really stuck out at me. The first is the early thing you said about, if you're comfortable beeping your horn, beep your horn. If you're comfortable getting out of the car, get out of the car. If you whatever it is, and not only is that, of course, true in a lot of different ways, different people have different risk tolerances, different people have different circumstances. You name the fact that you're a US citizen and you're white, I am too. So that gives me extra protection that I should be using. So everyone is gonna have different levels of risk that they're experiencing and different levels of risk that they tolerate. But all the different things people do mesh together. The person who just honks and won't even roll down their window is drawing attention to the person who will get out of their car with their whistle, to the person who will film with their phone, to the person who will park in such a way that it makes it harder for ICE to get away with someone they're trying to abduct. We're all part of this quilt of resistance, and you do your part knowing that it's gonna activate somebody else, and together we're gonna make an impact. The other thing you said, you just said it beautifully, but I wanna say it again because it's so important. It's coming out of the mouth of someone who is sitting with these assholes in a car for a long period of time. You said, "They are more scared of us than we are scared of them." They know that all of this stuff that we are doing is working, and every time we double the number of people doing it, it works twice as effectively, and they're scared of us, and that is a sign that we gotta keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, I do wanna loop back to the beginning because I've seen video. I didn't get to the scene until you were already in the car, so I don't, as an eyewitness, have, any visibility into the accident or the initial insane abuse that I've seen videos of, but you said it very clearly that the crimes that people on the street were committing were, well, there was the driver of the red car who had an accident that was forced by somebody else, and there's everybody else whose crime was having a different opinion, whose crime was disagreeing with these policies, whose crime was speaking out and yelling, maybe yelling mean things, maybe yelling a swear word every now and again, blowing a whistle because they disagree, and they are trying to criminalize dissent.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely what their role is to try and keep us down and scare us off. And it's not going to work. It's not going to work in this community. When I was on the ground and when I was in the car looking out at all the people, all the faces of the community members, it was, you know, it's the right thing to do. I never felt that at any point I was doing anything wrong. And all those people there were also there doing all the right things as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to be honest, I'm a little bit in awe because you did go through something traumatic, obviously. You were physically assaulted, and then you were kidnapped, and then you were driven around in handcuffs forever. And if your reaction was like, "Hey, I'm gonna take a beat and just disengage for a couple weeks and see kinda where I am," I don't think anyone would blame you. But it sounds like your reaction is almost the opposite of, "Okay, I've seen this machine from the inside. I've seen how it works. I've seen exactly how it doesn't work, and so I'm doubling down." Is that a fair characterization?
That's a fair characterization. I mean, what my choices are: I can sit in the corner and I can cry, or I can keep on doing exactly what I'm doing. And it, what makes it easier to keep on doing what I'm doing is everybody else's support and, comments and reaching out and saying, yes, you did the right thing. And I know I did the right thing, and I would do it again and again and again.
Yeah. What advice do you have? I mean, we are in the sort of center of this attack right now, and the Chicago area has been for a couple months now. I think we're kidding ourselves if we imagine that it's only ever gonna be us. Um, what's your advice to people in other metropolitan areas? How can you be as ready as possible for this nightmare when it starts?
If you have family and you have friends that live in other places, share this information with them. Share the information about the organizations that people create here, the whistle brigade, the rapid response. Be ready because I think you said it the other night on Rachel's show. I mean, we kind of came a little bit late to the start, but we're ready to go now, and we're full on, and everybody needs to be ready because this isn't just going to happen here, especially as elections keep rolling and the way they rolled yesterday. Thank God. Um, and yeah, these things are gonna happen in other areas. And stand up for your community. I mean, if you know somebody in your community that is an immigrant or is frightened just because they may be Latino or Latina, ask them what you can do for them. If you can help them in any way, get their groceries, do whatever, but protect your community. Keep an eye out. Always be alert. Keep your whistles handy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just I don't go anywhere without it. It's right here. Um, you know, I've been obsessed in the last it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I think about 2 weeks ago when I was trying to explain all this to my immediate family, my parents and my brother who live out of town, who are very sympathetic, who are follow the news closely. I'm just I just kept on saying, "You don't understand. You don't understand how bad it is. You don't understand what it feels like to live under occupation. You don't understand how it changes your central nervous system." And I think I just feel like we've gotta do what we can to explain to people in other towns just so they can be ready, just so they can be a part of fighting back, but also so they can prepare because, you know, we are in a really different place in terms of our preparedness for whatever fresh hell comes tomorrow than we were 6 weeks ago, and I just hope every other community in the country can get to where we are now before they have to go through what we went through 6 weeks ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you see people. I mean, I know I have friends in DC who are very active and you know raising the alarms when they're around and this and that. But this is a little bit different. I think they're a lot more violent here than they have been in other places, and I think they're trying to make an example of Illinois, and simply because we have outspoken political leaders in our state here who said we're not going to put up with it. And, they want to pick a fight with this state. I think they picked the wrong state to start with.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, they picked a fight with people who are ready to fight back, and we're witnessing that. So I don't wanna take too much of your time. I find this conversation totally fascinating. Do you have any other just again, for those of all the rest of us who've been living in fear of these monsters, who have been encountering them in public and then they disappear again, who haven't been trapped in a car with them for an hour or more, any other just thoughts about what you experienced, how they operate, how they aren't trained, how what they do, what they say, anything else you can share that might be either instructive for those of us who have not been in the position you were in, or might
Well,
be
like I said, their policing skills are less than none. I mean, they don't, they obviously don't know how to secure a vehicle. They don't know how to secure people that they're so-called apprehending. Um, I not only did I have, was able to retrieve my phone, I had full access to my handbag with all my stuff in it because it was attached to me. Um, they were very incompetent about when they were speaking on the phone, providing their phone numbers, saying the name of like their supervisor or whoever they were speaking to. The guy giving his license to the police officer. They don't have any sort of just general basic rules to follow or policing skills. They're not equipped to operate in an urban setting at all. But my biggest thing to say to everybody is don't be afraid. And your best weapon is shame. Shame the hell out of them. Never stop shaming them. Let them know how much their children are going to disrespect them and hate them, and how their parents are not absolutely not proud of who they are. Shame them, because that's they chose this. They chose to do this. They chose to obfuscate their constitutional duty to do, what's right for the country and not right for somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that I the the song from Broadview the Broadview protest that I still have in my head the most often is "Love your neighbor, love your God, save your soul, quit your job." And let that ring
Right.
in all of our heads.
That's what they should be doing. Yeah, they
That's right.
certainly should, or they should certainly not agree to perform this type of job.
Yeah. Well, I cannot thank you enough for this conversation. It is so just I'll just say, like, for me as a person, it is riveting. It is so interesting to hear. I think it's instructive for all of us. Just to recap, your experience, Jennifer, you walked up to a scene of an accident caused by federal agents on purpose. For the crime of walking up to it with a different opinion than theirs, you were assaulted. Then you were put in a car and handcuffed with someone who was not only assaulted, but injured, apparently relatively seriously, and not given medical attention, and then driven around by the Keystone cops for a while until they deposited you miles and miles from where they picked you up and then said, go home. Um, this is what we're dealing with. This is what these thugs are. You are a hero. The presence of mind you showed in that vehicle is insane. From the window thing to the phone thing to memorizing their number, to remembering in the moment that continuing to shame them is important, to yelling out the window to rapid responders. You're a hero and an inspiration, and I think all of us need to draw from your remarkable strengths when we find ourselves in that situation. Um, and we just need to be in this fight, and it works. What we're doing is not working enough. They're terrorizing people. They're tearing apart families. Don't ever forget that. Don't sweep that under the rug. It's real. It's a vicious crime, a moral stain. And yet, what we're doing is working and slowing them down and helping people and saving people. And I just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.